Brew, Nick is still processing this, so we're going to start with you.
I was ready to go. I was going to go first, and then literally 20 minutes before the show started, I was walking around outside the studio, and I got aggressively heckled by an Eagles fan, and I now need a little more time.
So good.
Like, it has gotten
like mean-spirited heckling?
Mean-spirited,
Really?
intense, almost kind of like the vibe of it was he wanted me to bark back and see how it would go. So I
was about to say, knowing you, I'm surprised y'all didn't fight.
You know what? There was the show. I have a responsibility to be here on the show. So, but go ahead.
Are the Chiefs in trouble?
Chiefs in trouble? No.
Really?
Look, I know everybody wanted me to come on here and, no. Not as far as making the playoffs and still being a contender. Now, I picked the Ravens to win it all, so I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. Oh. But anybody that's saying, oh, they're 0-2, they're not going to make the playoffs, oh, they're not a contender, that's crazy. Like, so no. And here's the thing. They lost 20-17 to the defending Super Bowl champions who had just blown them away 7 months ago. And to a large degree, I'm not going to say they gave the game away, but they had a lot of self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah.
First, let's go to their fourth quarter. And I'm going to talk about it. They had this great drive, 17 plays, I think it was, 74 yards or something like that. They get down to Philly 6. Travis Kelce, that's a drop. That's a catch you got to make.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the best tight ends ever. You that catch. If they make that, they're either tying the game or they're going ahead. Yeah, on that drive, I'm saying if he scores, obviously, a touchdown, they're up 17-13. But at the very least, they're going to tie if they can't score. Like, if he just doesn't, it doesn't get intercepted. Okay. So that took point. And then, of course, Philly goes down and gets a field goal. So now they go up 10. And Kelce, it's been a tough start to the season for Kelce. He admitted he ran the wrong route or didn't run it right, and that's how Xavier Worthy got hurt. Now this drop, I get it that he's feeling, it's kind of like CeeDee Lamb from, last week. So but that's self-inflicted. I mean, you don't expect him to, he's not going to keep doing stuff like that. Secondly, Mahomes, when the overthrow of Tyquan Thornton.
Brutal.
3:44 left. I think we have it. We're going to have a show. But you don't get any more wide open than that. And he just flat out missed it.
Were you shocked by that?
But I was shocked by it, but he's missed a few, again, young season.
He talked about
he
missing
missed Tyquan,
Noah Gray.
he missed Noah Gray in the first play of the game. That one, to me, is not nearly as damaging because they hit it 40 seconds later. The 40 seconds matters.
That's
the 40 seconds matters.
Yeah. They came back and
missed a kick in the game.
Right, exactly. So just things now I'm not saying they would have won. I'm just saying they were right there, and they had a lot of self-inflicted wounds. And I think, Nick, too, Andy Reid's 4th-and-1 call from his own 36 and the first drive of the third quarter. I don't know what he was thinking.
Andy put it on him. I think he was thinking that they needed to, start the drive, this half off with some momentum and do well. And he obviously also was thinking they'd get it. Would you like to go, KW? Because I think you're probably at least a little more concerned than Brew is.
Yes. The problem is these Chiefs don't look like the Chiefs that I fell in love with. I think the offense obviously is strange. I think the vibe is very strange. I thought the free 4 shirts before the game with Rashee Rice, when he didn't appeal a suspension, I thought it was odd and seems to be I read that as a lack of focus, not support for Rashee Rice. I feel like the Mahomes overthrow was just so uncharacteristic that it struck me as odd. I think the Kelce, people drop the ball. Everyone drops balls. It's not a big deal. Kelce being frustrated throughout the game seemed odd. Chris Jones' conversation with Jalen Hurts when he kind of is talking about stats rather than winning seemed uncharacteristic of a champion and a future Hall of Famer like Chris Jones. So the whole thing struck me as odd. That being said, there is a path. Started 0-2 after losing the Super Bowl in the last 20 years. It's the Chiefs this year. We don't know their record. The Bengals made it to the AFC Conference Championship game, and the 15 Seahawks did go 10-6, lost in the divisional round. So it's not. I don't think the normal 0-2 stat, which is I think 12% of teams make the playoffs.
Well,
and remember, there's 17 games now.
Yeah,
and-
so I still think there's a pass, but if this Chiefs team doesn't have
No, listen, it hasn't
like a Super Bowl
looked, it
hangover
hasn't
to me.
looked
Mahomes
right.
not playing well. Kelsey's not playing well. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I just think I'm talking about them making the playoffs.
If you take it to 0-2 teams that made the playoffs the previous year,
yeah.
Which means you're removing the 0-2 teams that were bad the previous year and then bad again. Since they've expanded the field, it's 5 out of 12. So you know what I mean? So that's almost half. So so here's the deal. Kansas City is in some trouble. Okay? Because they are going to have to really fight until they get their weapons back, and even getting their weapons back doesn't fix the following. They right now, the only way they can effectively run the ball is Patrick. Right. And I hate that Patrick is having to do that early.
I think he hates it.
Listen, I have always felt his deadliness as a runner is underrated because statistically he doesn't match up to the other running quarterbacks, but it's because he's so judicious with it. And then if you look at him, his playoff running numbers, he's as good as any playoff running quarterback ever. The fact that he has felt I needed to activate that immediately is concerning. The fact that he has, unlike last year, an excellent so far left tackle, but he still doesn't seem to be confident in the pocket, which I think has led to some of the overthrows. That part is concerning. The defense's inability, and I thought the defense played great yesterday, but the defense's inability to generate a pass rush without sending the blitz, sending the house, that part to me is concerning, and how difficult the early season schedule is with Rice suspended. Like, they are 0-2 you can come back from. 1-5's tough. And you know what I mean? And I'm not predicting 1-5, but 2-4 I wouldn't even be all that worried because I saw them.
They could be 2-4 too when you look at the schedule.
2-4 is on the board. At this point, and it's crazy to say this as the Chiefs guy, I'd sign up for 3-3.
Yeah, listen, we don't have to play too many games of trying to predict like what is it going to be like, because things are going to be different from week 7 onward. So I'll look at the schedule a little bit and try to figure out, what are other tough games. But I just want to talk about the Chiefs in general. I think it's concerning. I'm still not too concerned in terms of, what Wilds is saying. I get it. Kelsey's all upset. Chris Jones is talking about stats. That's not good. And that's bad. And you're experiencing this in week 2, right? Mahomes is clearly not happy. He's clearly a bit dejected and all of that. I didn't see the thing with Rashee Rice, but if it was actually Chiefs players wearing it, that's awful. I mean, I haven't looked it up. You guys will have to tell me. But if Chiefs players are wearing shirts to say, like, free him and stuff like that, I mean, that's kind of a disgrace, I'll be honest with you, considering what Rashee Rice did. But, like, I don't really know the story, and I'm just not going to dig into it, at least right now. But this has not been uncharacteristic for Mahomes. He has been inaccurate for these last couple of years. And you can't say, it's because he doesn't trust the O-line. That's not the case here. It's just not the case. He hasn't been accurate. And it's not a matter of, but it's different receivers. Accuracy is accuracy. He's been inaccurate. Even some nice catches like Hollywood Brown catching the ball like off his leg, like he's been inaccurate. Even some throws to Kelsey like that are almost gonna skip off the dirt, off the grass. Like he has not been very accurate as of late. And right now, the Chiefs, this team right now with the injuries and with the suspensions, this is the team that Chiefs fans try to make everyone believe are what Patrick Mahomes had in 22 and 23 and 24 for that matter. And it's just not true. It's just not true. Okay, you had a prime Kelsey in 22. Juju Smith-Schuster stopped downplaying his impact. You had the best O-line in the NFL with the best pass block win rate. You had a defense that could generate pressure. They were first or second in the NFL to just only the Eagles in terms of pressures generated. So they could reliably and consistently get to the quarterback. in 23, you had an elite defense that was just able to just shut down everyone. And you know, you had a Pacheco that was running on fire, and you had Rashee Rice who was really playing great, and Kelsey wasn't what he was in 22, but he wasn't what he is today in 25 either. And then same thing in 24, like you still had Xavier Worthy, DeAndre Hopkins. You know, that was obviously a weirder year because you had people kind of scattered throughout, but then you were still able to win these goofy games, right? You were able to come away with wins in weird situations that they're unable to pull off right now. It very much feels like if this was last year, they would have found a way to beat the Chargers. They would have found a way to beat the Eagles. There would have been a fumble or something like that, or there wouldn't have been the interception in the red zone. And so the thing is that the Chiefs are, I don't want to say making mistakes, but they're not executing in a way where all they need is the other team to make a mistake. That is what I said about the Chiefs for years. That is why they've been able to consistently win. It's just all we need is the other team to just make a mistake. One mistake, and that's it. We will win the game. You missed an extra point. You didn't get out of bounds when you should have. You stayed in bounds when you should have gotten out of bounds. That's all we need. We just need the tiniest little mistake, and we will be able to lean on you and break you. And this game, it was the other way around. The Eagles were like, all you do is need to make a mistake, and we got it. And we'll be able to lean on you and break you. We'll be able to dominate the time of possession. But the reality is why I'm not fully worried is because the defense is clearly good enough. The defense isn't bad. They're not as good as maybe they were in 23 and 24, but it's not bad. It's not the Cincinnati Bengals defense. And the offense will be better when Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy are back. That much is a guarantee. And then the run game will be better. So I don't know what Nick's talking about by bringing in Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, how that won't fix the run game. Of course it will. Of course it will. It gives Andy Reid so many more options to work with. So they will be better. And now here's the thing. The Lions are interesting. Are the Lions actually great or good, or did they just play a terrible Bears team? Right? Like, that's going to be interesting because they got dudes there, but I don't know. When they played a team that was put together, the Packers, they did not look good. So I'm fascinated to see what the Lions look like against the Kansas City Chiefs. Once upon a time, that game would have been tough. If you're telling me that this team is banged up and they're not fully healthy, you're like, I don't know, man. Ben Johnson, right? Aaron Glenn, stuff like, you're like, all right, that's a tough matchup right now. But now, I don't know. Against the Jags, I mean, I'm expecting Trevor Lawrence to look a lot better, but like, I don't know. And that defense is, Jake Browning is, slicing and dicing them up. The New York Giants, man, I don't know. It's like, what game are you going to get from Russ? I mean, seriously, like, I don't know. I mean, those are winnable games. And then you have the Baltimore Ravens, which, listen, the Baltimore Ravens were kind of in a battle with the Cleveland Browns, and then eventually the dam broke. But that game was kind of close for a big stretch of that. So it's just like, we'll see. But I mean, they can beat the Giants, they could beat the Jags, and they could beat the Lions. And now they're 3-3, dealing with all their injuries. Right? Wait, is that who it would be? Yeah, that would be 3-3. And then you're on to the Raiders and the Commanders, and the Bills will be tough. The Broncos gave you a gift by losing to the Colts when they clearly should have won. So it's like if you're a legitimately great team now with Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice back, right? You're gonna like your ability to beat the Raiders at home, the Commanders. Maybe you lose to the Bills. Who knows? You got the Broncos, the Colts, the Cowboys, the Texans, the Titans. There's still plenty of wins there. Now the Bengals, seems like Joe Burrow may be out, so they scratch that away now from a wild card spot, right? It now potentially gives easy wins to the Ravens, which can solidify themselves as a higher seed, for home field advantage. Same thing with the Bills and whatnot, but mainly more targeted towards the Ravens, obviously, since it's in division. It doesn't seem like the Steelers should be too much trouble for the Bills. It feels like the Ravens should walk in, but they got dealt a loss that they should have won against the Bills. So it just seems like everything will still be a little bit in the balance. I think the Chiefs run into trouble a little bit more so if they lose to the Ravens and the Lions, that would then make them, what, 2-4. And then you start to play this game where you split with the Raiders, split with the Broncos, get swept by the Chargers, lose a tough game against the Texans and the Bills or something, or whatever it is, right? You start to in a way, if you start to lose too many games in that first stretch of 6 games, you lose the ability to lose any of those random catch games. Like, you should beat the Texans, but now you don't, right? Like, that hurts you. But because of the way how the season's unfolding so far, and with some of these random teams playing great and some of the teams that should win are not, right? Like, the Bengals should be 2-0, but now they're 0-2, or I think they're 1-1. The Patriots, a lot of people were high on them, and it's like, I don't know if they're really going to be a wild card spot, right? Like, I still think, even if just because of all the losses in the beginning of the season for the Chiefs, and now they're fighting for the for a wild card spot rather than the division. I'm not saying they can't win the division. I'm just saying, a doomsday scenario where they lose too many games in that first batch of 6 games. I just think that the way how the season is unfolding so far, the wild card spots are still open. The Broncos losing a game that they should have won. The Texans just don't really feel all that threatening to me right now. Yeah, the Colts are going and the Jags are going, but there's just all those teams feel beatable. And I will take the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, and that coaching staff. I don't care who the roster is. That's the thing. If you told me that the Chiefs were going up against the Colts or going up against the Texans right now, and Xavier Worthy's not there, and Rashee Rice isn't there, I'm like, I like the Chiefs. I'm going to trust the Chiefs to be able to find a way to slow down Daniel Jones. I'm going to trust Patrick Mahomes with Hollywood Brown and Travis Kelce to be able to put up some points against the Dallas Cowboys defense. I just believe in their ability to work around it. I really do. They're far from obviously the roster that they should be right now, and yet they were still able to lose 2 tough games that I'm not going to say that they could have won, but the win was possible for them. It was on the table when I really think that if you had anyone but Andy and Mahomes and Spags there, you would have looked like Russell Wilson and the New York Giants against the Washington Commanders in week 1, or the Detroit Lions versus the Packers in week 1. And so you're not seeing that. And that is the power of Andy, Spags, and Mahomes more than anything else. That is the power of that trio. That it's just nothing is ever too far from a win. You're never too far. Even if you're fighting, even if Travis Kelce is freaking out and Chris Jones is talking nonsense, like, you still got the leaders in the core there. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Kansas City Chiefs? Are they in trouble? Are you concerned? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.